Salam alaikum and greetings. This is Gerd Leonhard, futurist in Zurich, Switzerland. I am delighted to contribute a keynote to the IEEE Global Conference on AI and the Internet of Things 2020 in beautiful Dubai. First, I'd like to thank His Excellency Hussein Al-Hamadi, Minister of Education in the UAE, and the esteemed representatives from different governments in the Middle East and international institutions. I want to kick off this conversation by talking about the digital transformation in the post-COVID world. You know, it's been a really crazy year, I think, for most of us. Unbelievable change has come our way, unbelievable challenges, and also some pretty amazing opportunities. One thing is for certain, we're not going back to normal. We're not going back to the world before COVID because the way that we look at things has changed. We have learned so much and we've suffered so much. And now we're thinking about what we want in the future. We're thinking about globalization. We're thinking about healthcare. We're thinking about leadership. We're asking questions. Our mindset has changed, especially I think if you're a millennial, if you're between 25 and 35, this is a deep cut in our lives, and it's going to make us think about the future different. It's truly a great reset, a great transformation as we're going into this world that is vastly different than before. We're going into a world where there's a shakeup. Right? There's things that used to matter before, all of a sudden they're different, and things that have been on the top are falling down to the bottom and creating an entirely new framework of how we look at the world. This is going to manage and change our world in the next 10 years in a fundamental way, especially in the Middle Eastern region. So a couple of things, for example, cruise ships, flying, the oil industry, cars, Bitcoin, Brexit, all the things that were mattered so powerful before. Now, what is powerful now? Well, on the top now, we have, of course, healthcare and dealing with the vaccine, technology, anything with technology, remote working, sustainable energy, trusting the government has changed our worldview completely. Are we just going to go back to the pre-pandemic circumstances? No, we're not, because the narrative has changed, our worldview has changed, our approaches have changed, and this is really going to drive digital transformation in an entirely new way. I mean, really what happened is that it's quite clear that the future is no longer just a destiny. It's not something that happens to us. I mean, it never really was, but many people thought about the future as something that just happens to us, comes from, I don't know, America, Silicon Valley, China. No. Right? The future is a choice that we make. What we want is going to be more important than what we can have with technology. Because in 10 years, let's face it, technology will be virtually unlimited, unlimitedly powerful, pretty much all the options that we want to address our problems. But we have to make the right choices. The future is a choice, especially when technology is now exponential, Moore's law, convergent and combinatorial, Metcalfe's law, and many other laws that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But we're living in the most powerful time of change. The next 10 years will bring more change than the previous 100 years. That is because technology is finally getting real. Yeah, we talked about 3D printing, we talked about quantum computing, we talked about new ideas for how to do AI, like machine learning and deep learning, I don't know, for 20 years, but it's finally actually working. I'll show you some examples. In the next 10 years, we're going to go through a transformation that is unheard of. For the UAE and the entire region, this is a crucial transformation away from natural resources to the resources of the mind, the resources of thinking, of technology, of creativity, to virtual resources. I mean, clearly, these topics aren't new. We've had debate about automation and factories all the way back to Charlie Chaplin and, of course, this movie that you may know from, I don't know, 50 years ago. But now it's all about this, right? It's about the power of technology. If it hadn't been for the power of technology and AI, we probably would suffer a lot more from this current COVID crisis. I mean, think about if we hadn't had AI to figure out a possible remedy and to the pandemic and the vaccine, and of course all the therapeuticals and so on, it would be much, much worse than today. We've already made giant steps into this future where clearly we are going warp drive. Right? You just hit the button and boom, off we go into the next 10 years. Exponential, right? 4, 8, 16, 32. In 10 years, we'll be at 256, probably 100 times X of today. Imagine that. 100 times as powerful technology as today, 9 billion people on the internet, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of connected devices. A reset of energy, a reset of machine intelligence. I mean, great opportunities and also, of course, great challenges because of the speed, right? It's hard to deal with warp drive as a human. I mean, clearly, in this scenario, it's kind of like a giant development of all the things that were there before, for example, telemedicine, telehealth, entertainment, working in the cloud, and e-commerce and stuff. That's all of a sudden being sucked into this giant warp drive hole where everything is much faster than before, not just because of COVID, also because it's just possible. Right? I mean, we're looking at a future where also the not so good things are emphasized because of the warp drive, because of the speed, right? For example, deglobalization and rethinking supply chain and isolationism and unilateralism, which I will discuss later. And of course, the isolation that comes with being a virtual worker and working remotely all the time, and climate change, and of course, inequality. Right? I mean, we're going to a world to where that's already quite clear. The top 10% are recovering quickly in the crisis. And the bottom 90% are left holding the bag. Right? Inequality has been amplified, and isolation has been amplified. And of course, climate change, I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, those are things that we have to tackle as well. We can't just take the advantage of great technology and not deal with the social and cultural issues. Remember this, technology will not solve political, social, and cultural and human issues. It'll probably make them worse. Look at social media and what happened in social media. We have to address this on a broader scale. If we want an amazing world to live in, we have to think beyond the practical aspects and the economic aspects and not just put profit and growth first. We have moved into a world that clearly is egged on by COVID in so many ways. I call this the 5 bigs, right? So we essentially have big tech, right? We have big media, which everybody's using now. We have big state. Huge debate about this, but the state is now running the show in so many ways, right? Big health, clearly that goes without saying, and of course, big green, which I'll emphasize here, but basically big blue, right? That is technology absolutely everywhere, and this is where all the money is going. This is where all the growth is, and fortunately for us, the convergence of technology and biology, of healthcare, exponential, convergent, combinatorial. In 10 years, we probably won't be taking pills for cholesterol, or maybe not even for diabetes. You know, maybe we're even going to be able to prevent cancer in 20 years. I mean, amazing stuff that's happening with CRISPR-Cas9 and technology and all those things. And of course, climate change is now finally on the agenda in a big way, because we're saying, you know, if we have emergencies, we have to act quicker. We learned that from COVID, and climate change is a much bigger emergency than COVID could ever be, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but huge opportunities also for new markets. I mean, climate change and dealing with new renewable energy, and of course the entire switch to renewable society, that isn't just a challenge, it's also a business plan. Think about that for a second, right? So big tech, big media, big state, big health, big green, that is the opportunity in the next year and the next couple of years. And clearly that's going to take over pretty much anything else that was there before. So huge decade of change that's coming our way the next 10 years, right? More change than the previous 100 years, driven by what I call the game changers. Okay. And of course, I'm sure you're pretty aware of the game changes, but just to kind of recap a little bit, I mean, clearly it's all about data. Data is the new oil, talked about that many times before. Everything is in the cloud. Cloud computing is now the standard. Everything is connected to the Internet of Things. Everything is computable. Quantum computing is coming. Supercomputing is coming. In 10 years, this computer I'm using here right now will probably have 1,000,000 times the power that it has now. And it may not actually be on my desk, it may be in the cloud. And of course, natural language processing, speaking to machines, just mind-boggling the progress that we've made there. Also recognizing images. Intelligent machines, not intelligent like humans, not human agency, not human consciousness, no, but pretty smart machines. Computers are no longer stupid. The blockchain, clearly a very big deal for pretty much anything about transactions, not so much for money in my view. 3D printing, finally getting real, and of course virtual reality, and down here human genome editing. Whoop, I gotta get it out of the way. Human genome editing, which I described before, but these are all coming at the same time. They're coming together. They're creating a giant push forward in every possible way. I mean, consider yourself lucky. 10 years ago, we had most of these trends already, but they weren't coming together, and now they are. Again, in 10 years, we're going to be in an entirely different place. That's both very exciting, but potentially also nerve-wracking, right? Because who's in charge? Who's in control as science fiction is becoming science fact? Just to give you some examples about the science fiction, science fact part, right? For example, controlling machines with your voice, speaking to the computer, being able to use voice recognition for customer service, intelligent assistants. That's all coming. It's all in the wings. All we have to understand is how to use it with humans rather than against humans. 3D printing. We can already 3D print earlobes, kneecaps, tooth implants, engine parts. That is going to be a huge change in the global supply chain. Also, of course, in global trade. I think we'll trade other things instead. So I won't make much of a dent there, but it will be a huge shift in terms of how we do it. And of course, telemedicine and being able to check your situation, your medical situation from home. Imagine what kind of difference that would make in the region when you're in a faraway place and you can't really tap into a live doctor. Can you do remotely? Absolutely. 90% of things that we do with the doctor could be done that way. And of course, machine learning. This is a really big deal of artificial intelligence. It's actually not about machines thinking like humans. It's about machines learning patterns and being able to provide prognoses and advanced information and actually learning from things that would be impossible to learn from humans, for humans, because of the limited amount that we can take in on information. Clearly, for your region, that's the ticket, the 10 game changers. And here's the other ticket that you have to remember. It doesn't make any sense unless we put the human back inside. Until we create human value, not machine value, not stock market value, not just economic value, but human value, social, ethical, cultural, political, human, personal value. Right? That is ultimately what all the science is all about, right? Kind of human happiness. Right? So 4 bottom lines here. Data is the new oil, but it's also kind of a new plutonium. It's a new way of using data as a weapon. Social media has clearly shown that data can be used as a weapon, and we do have to keep a very good eye on this and use regulation. That is all coming this year, clearly, very big deal. AI is the new electricity. It's powering all of those transactions that are based on data. And that's clearly going to make vast differences in our life. The cloud is the new office as we work from home, and it's also the new living room. I mean, you could say to some degree that we're going to live in the cloud. And in 10 years, I think most of us will work in the cloud in some way. Clearly, the challenge here will be dehumanization, isolation, not connecting to people anymore. Virtuality, same thing, very powerful stuff like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, going inside, fetching the data. That's going to be our new eyes, our ears, our senses. Also very powerful, but also potentially quite conflicting. Imagine all these things come to fruition. How will I make sure that I can still do what I want to do as a human, which is not being a machine? And clearly, the economic fate of your region and your country, clearly the empires of the future are the empires of the mind, said Winston Churchill. I don't know, 1951, I think, quite some time ago. Empires of creativity, of ideas, of non-physical things, not of natural resources. And natural resources will continue in some way or the other, but clearly we're going to go to a giant shift as to what we are transforming, which is ourselves and our societies, not just our resources, like through the use of virtual reality that you can see here. Called Oculus Rift Infinite Office from Facebook, right? I mean, imagine if you had that and that was working, mind-boggling, right? But also potentially addictive, confusing, potentially dehumanizing. So how are we going to find the right path through this? How are we going to find the right path about the Internet of Things? It could be heaven or it could be hell. I mean, imagine the data wasn't private. Imagine everything was trackable, including your thoughts, right? And never mind your actions. And we are essentially inventing a new meta-intelligence. That's what we're doing when we use data and cloud and the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, so-called. I would rather call this intelligent assistance, IA, for now. But yeah, we're inventing something extremely powerful. And so the question is, in the end, who is mission control for this? Who can we trust? Do we need a global trust network? Absolutely. Digital identity provider? Absolutely. Can it be one country or one company? No. This is a global issue. If we have to solve it together, clearly that's going to be a very big deal about figuring out how to make this positive for the most part and to deal with the negative consequences. Clearly we're moving into that future where that is the new normal. The digital transformer will be absolutely everywhere, as we jokingly call it. I'm going to stick the old business in, and out comes the new business, right? So smart farming, smart energy, smart cities, smart banking, smart home, smart industry, not just Industry 4.0, but Industry 5.0, based on all of the things than before, plus artificial intelligence, and of course, smart government, yeah, absolutely everywhere. That is the ticket to the future. But it should be smart, but not so smart that we can't understand it anymore, right? So connected everything and smart everything, that brings up the question, clearly, what about humans? Because humans aren't always smart or connected or fast. In fact, humans are inefficient and they make mistakes. So how will that fit together? Do we have flexible enough rules? Do we leave the human in charge? That is clearly going to be super important, that we don't make it too smart so that we stop kind of connecting with who we are, because this is kind of the reality, right? Humans and machines are converging. I mean, not converging, hopefully, in the physical sense, but yeah, many things are interfacing between humans and machines, and that is going to be absolutely where we're going. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, said something very important 2 years ago at the European Commission event where I was attending. He said, technology can do great things, but it does not want to do great things. It doesn't want anything. And I so agree with this. If we want technology to do the right thing and to deliver human value, we have to make it do that. And we have to make choices. We have to make rules. We have to make recommendations. We have to make social contracts. Because technology doesn't understand values or the things that we really want. It understands command lines, zeros and ones. Yes, it can learn, but not like us. It's a narrow learning machine, but extremely long. Right? And general intelligence is not really part of this. Take 5G. 5G is going to be absolutely a revolution in communicating. No latency, instant access. Think about telemedicine. Think about anything that can be done with a hologram or augmented reality. And that is not far away. Rollout in your region, I don't know, 5 years. It's already happening. That's going to fundamentally change your life. But here's the thing. When we think about all the connectivity and data, analytics and intelligence, here's the bottom line, riffing off Albert Einstein's saying, I think everything should be as connected, smart, automated, and efficient as necessary, but not more. When things are too efficient and too much machine-based and too much controlled by machines, we're going to lose what makes us human. Our freedom, our liberty, our free will, that is a balance you have to strike. That is a serious task, because we want the benefit but not the disadvantage. And everything should be as connected as possible, but not more. So, as we're moving into the future, most of technology is clearly a present to us. It can lead to amazing things, but when we use it too much, then it's like anything we use too much, whether it's coffee or cigarettes or food. Right? So too much of a good thing can be a very bad thing. Technology can be used as a weapon and as a bomb. AI can be used to do great things, or it can be used to destroy. Just like a carpenter can use a hammer to build a house or kill somebody on the street. Right? So technology is morally neutral until we use it. And so this is why we need digital ethics. We need a framework. What is good and what's not so good? And that has to be decided, of course, locally, regionally, but also internationally. What we do not want is an arms race of artificial intelligence. Countries trying to beat each other to superiority, like Russia's president has said a few years ago, that whoever dominates AI dominates the world. Well, that is probably not a very good idea to pursue this course in the future. I really think as we are going into the world that is completely connected and making entirely things possible, especially for our kids, and think about what they're going to do in the future, technology drives our society, but ethics will define it. We should let technology frame many things, business activities, and what we do as an economy, but it should not frame us as humans. We should frame technology. We should define what it should do. And not just because it can do it, but why? Right? That is the key question that we're going to ask, because technology has no ethics. It is a machine. Right? And even if it eventually gets much better at simulating us, which it will, right, we are going to need to define the framework. And that is so crucial about artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, not just to rush into progress, but also to have precaution, to be proactive and precautionary. That is not going to be entirely easy.
You know, Monkey has been able to control the computer with its brain. Just, yeah.
As our good friend Elon Musk launches his new project called the Neuralink, connecting your brain to the computer, this question pops up left and right. Yeah? Is it going to be great? Well, if you're handicapped or you can't move and you can't communicate, yes. But building super people, superhumans, super soldiers, the Neuralink brain computing plans that he has put on the map, right? All you have to do is watch that on YouTube. It's quite scary, right? But clearly, as Marshall McLuhan once famously and wisely said, I think it was 1968, we shape our tools, and thereafter they shape us. Do we want to be shaped by this kind of technology? No. We should shape it. We should not transcend humanity, but we should transcend technology. That's the key to our future. So when we speak about ethics, we have to first define it, and that is an important part. Ethics is knowing the difference between what you have the power to do and the ability and the right, and what is the right thing to do. Clearly that speaks to Facebook again, right? They have the power and the right to do what they did and they are doing, but it is still unethical, right? It's not the right thing to do. So that question will be with us everywhere, especially in AI, as we talk about the power of machine learning and deep learning. Yeah, do we have the right to do? Can we do it? Yeah, increasingly so. Is it the right thing to do? And who's in charge? I mean, clearly we're moving into the future like this, where AI is going to be on this course running from assisted intelligence, IA, to automation, to augmented intelligence, and then ultimately to autonomous intelligence. I do not think that autonomous intelligence is a very good idea. In fact, I think that at that point is where we need the moratorium to think about how far do we go with this? Do we want a machine with an IQ of 1 trillion? Well, IQ is a very relative thing. There's a lot more involved than just computing, right? But clearly we may eventually face these issues that we already face today, but X 100,000, bias, manipulation, reductionism, boiling us down to simple stuff that's not human, dehumanization, and of course last, the loss of human control. That is something that we need to take a look at while we develop the good tools that we have, right? As long as we're over here with intelligent assistance or automation, we're still in a pretty safe place. But as we move up to autonomous intelligence, those questions will be ultimately crucial. Again, right now, mostly IA, but then proceeding down the road fairly quickly, I would say roughly 10 years to reach more of a general AI level beyond Google Maps and Slack automation and things like that that we have now. And going towards artificial general intelligence, this is where we're going to need a moratorium. That's where we're going to have to say, you know what, until here we go, and then it's just not going to be controllable. Read Stuart Russell's book on AI called Human Compatible. That tells pretty much the secret beyond all of these things. And in the book, he talks about this issue that I've looked at many times before, and again, quoting Blade Runner, right? Do we really want a system that's more human than human, right? I don't know, as the Tyrell Corporation said famously in the movie, business is our mission. We want people to be more, our robots to be more human than human. Well, the bottom line really is we do not want that. Stuart Russell says in his book, quite simple, when we think about AI, it's not about the Hollywood stuff or any of these things. What we want from them is competence, not consciousness. We should not pursue consciousness in machines. We should pursue competence that's subject to our purpose and our context. That is the key of artificial intelligence. We're moving into a future where clearly we are at a fork in the road. Whatever we decide now, we can make changes, but basically, it's going to decide what we do now in the next 10 years. What you do now in your region is going to decide utopia, the positive part, hopefully, and the beautiful part of our future, the nirvana or oblivion. And that's all going to be decided in the next 10 years. We will have all the tools we need, but do we have the telos, as the ancient Greek used to say, the will, the purpose? Do we have the right idea? Do we have the right measurement? That is going to be our choice as we go in the future. And clearly we are facing 4 different waves here. And the first wave, of course, being COVID. And not going to talk much about that because it's not really a pleasurable point. But the recession coming from COVID will be over sooner than we think, but ultimately the next big wave is climate change, and beyond that, of course, the singularity and AGI, artificial general intelligence. All these waves have good things and they have not so good things. But clearly, business as usual is over. Right? It's dead or dying. If you think business as usual will continue and your business plan is safe, no. The future is not an extension of the present. The future is entirely rebooting all the time now, and it's arriving much quicker than you would have ever thought. I guarantee you that the effects of climate change will not take 20 years to arrive. They're going to take less than 10 years, and we're seeing them already now. Business as usual is dead. We have to reinvent. We have to rethink. We have to rethink how we use our economic logic and clearly go beyond the current crisis discussion, right? Because clearly climate change, as it is coming, and it's been already on the agenda before COVID, is just a test run, right? COVID is a test run for climate change. 1,000x. And it's coming quicker than we thought. And it's a giant opportunity for us to reinvent how we do everything. It's a giant opportunity to think about the unthinkable becoming the new normal, like the carbon tax. We already have carbon taxes, right? But we also have $3.5 trillion worth of fossil fuel subsidy. That is not going to last. We're going to see a carbon tax pretty much on airplane rides. For example, you pay as much for the carbon tax as you pay for the ticket. And we're going to see a carbon tax on meat, on eating meat. And never mind, of course, using a regular car. That is becoming the new thing because of the COVID crisis, but also because of before. Think about the new normals. Don't go back to the old normal. It will destroy us. When we think about the new normal, we think about things like Europe. You know, what has happened to Europe? Well, we're finally at the point where we are uniting. Right? The stimulus package, the green package, unheard of before. You can expect Europe to come together. That's going to have great impact on your region as well, because the United States of Europe will be much more powerful than it is today. Yes, it's not perfect, it's painful, but it will happen. We're going to see a pivoting America. And clearly this is going to have a huge global impact, hopefully positive, right? After 4 years of a political desert, so to speak, right? And of course, the end of oil. It's already the end of coal. You know, it's cheaper to build a solar plant, a renewable energy plant in India and Brazil than it is to build a coal plant. And clearly we're moving towards the end of oil in the next decade. That will have vast ramifications, of course, on your region, your country, but it is entirely manageable. Right? There's new revenue streams coming in from the green deals, the unthinkable, the new normal, a new way of looking at money as well. Our economic system is resetting. It's not just going to be about one thing, profit and growth. No, we have seen already the change before COVID, the shareholder economy, not the stockholder economy, and the sort of turn to what I call the quadruple bottom line, right? People, planet, purpose, and prosperity. Those four things. That's what's going to run our future. That's what's going to be most important. That is going to be the new paradigm of a stock market, like the long-term stock exchange. You want to define the future, start a stock exchange in Dubai that does this, right? That brings in companies who have the quadruple bottom line, who think further than just GDP, beyond GDP, which is quite clearly not a ticket, not suitable for the future. And our future is going to be about multilateralism, about globalization, about also regionalization, like in supply chain, but clearly about collaboration. It's not going to be about isolationism. It's going to be about solving the large issues together, using technology and using our wisdom, our policy, clearly, as we go into the future of water, food, energy being defined by what we do together. Right? This is where you guys can take a lead in the region. And the human impact of this will be gigantic, right? I mean, automation will have much more impact than globalization. And many people think that because of automation, because of all the tech, we're going to become useless. No, we're not. Right? Because we get to move up the food chain. Right? Yeah, you're useless if you're working like a robot will take your job. That concerns quite a few people. But think about your job as being completely like a robot. No, not so many, not even a call center, right? It's completely automatable, or a driver. Because the reality really is, as we're doing this, we're switching to a new way of looking at the world. The human-only skills, right? Critical thinking, right? Purpose, curiosity, all the stuff that only we can do, that is finally going to be realized as more important, right? Even though automation will remove some jobs, there are going to be new ones based on our human-only skills, the things that only we can do, the things that only humans can put together and realize in the future. So the bottom line is this: as machines are getting smart, that anything that can be automated and digitized, robotized will be. Right? Machines are learning how to do this. But don't fear this, because there's so many things that we are doing that cannot be automated or virtualized. So we have to use machines to do simple jobs like this one. A pretty fancy iRobot, or it can do jobs like this one, like the Tesla car parking itself. Yeah, it seems trivial, and it is trivial, but it's truly amazing this is possible. Is that going to replace humans? No. It is just a tool that we use to automate things as they come along. And then we have tools like GPT-3, this AI, that's a generative pre-trained transformer. It's a model to where you can type text or you can speak text and it creates an app, or it does stuff that people would usually do. So creating an instant app, a JavaScript, a translation, a thesaurus entry, whatever, like you can see here. OpenAI launched this, I think, a couple of months ago. It's pretty mind-boggling stuff. So do we need programmers in the future? Yes, we need programmers, because this is just the beginning of what you can do with programming. It is not going to take us away from programming. It will take us away from the stupendous programming, you could say, the commodity work, right? The work that a machine can do. But there's so much more work to be done, right? It's smart in the sense of a machine, but it's not thinking, it's not existing, it's not conscious, it doesn't have human agency. Right? Anything that cannot be automated will become much more valuable. And this is where we have to invest. We have to invest equally in technology, then also equally in humanity, in both parts of what we do, especially for our kids and for education. When I talked about this a couple of months ago at another event in the region, we have to teach our kids also to be better humans, not just to be better scientists, to have consciousness and values and ethics, and philosophy, art, design. That's what makes us human. That's much more valuable in the future. Because what's happening, clearly, machines are learning the routines everywhere. They're learning it in warehouses, they're learning it on the internet, they're learning it in e-commerce. But, as an example, Amazon, the key automator of the world, really, last year hired 150,000 people. This year, 250,000 people. And what kind of work are they doing? Well, it's work that the machines can't do, or work with the machines, hopefully not for the machines, right? So clearly, that also means our education has to change. We have an emphasis on STEM especially in your region, which I think is good, but is that the future? India has 1 million engineers graduating every year. Are they all going to find work when machines get smart? Well, we're going to need a bit more than that, right? And I call this HECI in my book, Technology versus Humanity. Humanity, ethics, creativity, and imagination. That is going to be the underpinning in the future of jobs, to rehumanize our education. And of course, that's going to be equal with science and technology. Clearly, we have to have both. Right? So understanding humans is really important. Understanding science is important. And depending on your own emphasis, we are going to need both. But don't make a mistake about this. Anything that can be done by machines in the future will be. And that includes a lot of science and technology as well, as we are moving up the food chain to do human-only work. So really, what does it all mean for us? In the end, smart technology will be absolutely everywhere. The Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, intelligent assistants. But on top of that, there is the human intelligence. Very hard to think of that as being done by machines, maybe in 20 years, maybe in 30 years, maybe in 50 years, maybe never, I don't know. But we have social intelligence, intellectual intelligence, kinesthetic, emotional intelligence. That's what most people want from their company leaders now. That's what HR wants here, right? So this is our recipe for the future. Amazing humans on top, awesome humans on top of amazing technology, right? Well, the good old American word awesome. It's a very good fit here. So that is the ticket, I think, for us to think about the future, this kind of handshake between humans and machines. That's what we want, and that handshake has to be supervised. It has to be organized, right? It has to have ethics, and that's why I have suggested so many times to start a digital ethics council. And I think you have those discussions with the Minister of AI and the Minister of Happiness in your country coming together and thinking about this. I think this would be a very, very powerful lead to have, thinking about what is the right thing to do with technology, because technology will be unlimitedly powerful. Let me give some final thoughts. First, let's start here. We need to forget this question about what will the future bring, as if we weren't there to make it, as if somebody else would make it. Here's the real question, right? The real question is, what kind of future do we want? What kind of future do we want to leave our children? What kind of future do we want to create? What is our preferred future? Because we will have all the options, especially in your region. What kind of future do you want? Right? And where are you going to put the emphasis? Are you going to put the emphasis on what used to work? That will not work in the future. Or are you going to put the emphasis on the new things that will work around the world, taking a leadership position there? Clearly, as we're moving into the future like this, this is the key question. Right? Key question is not how we can do something or if we can do something. That's called feasibility. The key question is, we're moving from this question of why are we doing it and who is doing it. So away from this issue of saying, well, let's do whatever we can. No, but the question is, why are we doing this, and who is it for, and who is in charge, and how do we make it human friendly? Hence, I present to you the 6 future principles that have been proven to be very powerful when instituted. First, technology ones, exponential convergence. You're on the path there, I think, pretty well with that transformation. And then the human ones, the societal transformation. That is where transformation has really taken us. Holistic business models, circular economy, human benefit, people, planet, purpose, and prosperity. Putting that together into a giant package, that's where we're going. We're going in the future where the biggest problem is not that machines will take over. That may be a problem eventually, is that we become too much like them. The future really is to embrace technology, but not to become technology. I want to leave you with a final remark on this. It's up to us right now to make the right decisions, to be wise, to shape the future, or to be shaped by it. Thanks very much for listening to me, and it's been a real pleasure to be your keynote speaker today.